Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment standing on a global stage where millions are watching, where every eye is fixed on your next move and the world expects you to celebrate in the exact way they have always seen before. Now imagine choosing a different path, not because it is easy, but because it is the right one. Today, we are not just talking about cricket or a trophy. We are exploring a decision that challenges the way the world measures success, respect, and influence. When a nation refuses what everyone else desires, it is not an act of defiance for the sake of drama. It is a statement of principle, courage, and vision. This moment is about understanding the power of standing firm, about redefining victory, and about sending a message that echoes far beyond any stadium or ceremony. You will see how one decision can ripple across continents, influence perceptions, and teach lessons that go beyond sports into leadership, diplomacy, and integrity. I invite you to stay with me as we unravel the meaning behind India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy. By the end of this journey, you will not only see a nation's choice in a new light, but you will also gain insights on how courage, principle, and vision can change the way the world sees you, and maybe even how you see yourself. This is more than a story about a trophy. This is a lesson in power, respect, and the art of making decisions that matter. Stay with me, because what you are about to learn could change the way you think about success forever. When a nation refuses a major trophy on an international stage, it transcends the realm of sports and steps into the sphere of global symbolism. A trophy, in essence, is more than a metallic object or a decorative prize. It is the embodiment of recognition, honor, and victory. To reject it is not an act of disregard for the effort that went into earning it, but rather a deliberate statement to the world that certain values or principles outweigh the applause of recognition. In the case of India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy, the act itself carries a symbolism that cannot be ignored, especially by a global audience that is always quick to interpret meaning beyond the surface. The refusal suggests that India sees victory not merely in material accolades, but in the assertion of its independence and clarity of stance. For decades, trophies have symbolized not just who wins a game, but also who dominates the narrative of power, pride, and identity. By turning away from this traditional symbol of success, India is suggesting that it does not seek validation in the same way as others might. The world is accustomed to nations celebrating with glittering cups held high, but to walk away from that image is to create a contrast so sharp that it forces observers to question why is the true power of symbolism here. For the international community, especially regions like Europe that deeply value symbolism in politics and culture, this kind of gesture resonates strongly. It is not about dismissing the efforts of the tournament or undermining competition, but about elevating the moment into a narrative of self-definition. Refusing the trophy strips away the superficial celebration and instead draws attention to the deeper issues, be they political, ethical, or strategic, that lie beneath the surface of the sporting event. It is as if India is saying, our message matters more than your applause. This act therefore transforms what could have been a routine victory ceremony into a moment of historical conversation. It becomes a catalyst for debate, a trigger for analysis, and a symbol of positioning. The world takes note not because India won, but because India chose to refuse what others would have eagerly accepted. That refusal is not silence, it is a loud symbolic statement. It shifts the focus from celebration to meaning, from triumph to intention, and from sport to diplomacy. When a country chooses integrity over recognition, the world takes notice. Recognition in the form of trophies, awards, or international praise often serves as a currency of prestige, a way to display dominance or success. Yet, integrity represents something deeper, an unwavering adherence to principles, values, and long-term vision. India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy can be interpreted as a prioritization of integrity over the mere recognition that comes with lifting a title. This decision suggests that the nation sees its identity and dignity as more important than external applause or validation. And this is absolutely beautiful and perfect, and it's made. It's like recognition has always been a powerful motivator, not just in sports, but in diplomacy, business, and politics. Countries often use international victories to project soft power, boost morale, and showcase national capability. But recognition without integrity is hollow. It can easily be swayed by compromises, temporary gains, or superficial optics. By refusing to accept a prestigious symbol, India is sending a message that it will not be boxed into a narrative that contradicts its principles. In doing so, it reframes the meaning of victory, not about holding a trophy, but about holding firm to values, even in the face of global expectation. This act also reflects the struggle every nation faces between being celebrated and being true to itself. For India, the refusal seems to highlight that national sovereignty and moral clarity stand above ceremonial accolades. Such a move is a reminder that validation from others is not the ultimate goal. Rather, the preservation of national identity and self-respect defines true success. It is an assertion that no external award can outweigh the significance of internal coherence and principle. And from an international perspective, especially for European audiences familiar with historical struggles where integrity often clashed with recognition, this resonates deeply. The refusal becomes a moral statement rather than just a political or sporting act. It communicates that India is unwilling to compromise its stance for the sake of outward celebration. Instead of embracing recognition that may come with underlying conditions, the country elevates its position by showing that its dignity is not for trade. Such a choice creates a narrative that is both compelling and unsettling. It compels respect because it demonstrates courage, and it unsettles because it challenges the norms of how victory is usually measured. In refusing recognition, India underscores that true power lies not in acceptance of symbols, but in the strength to walk away from them when they do not align with principle. When a nation takes an unusual step on the international stage, the world does not observe it in silence. It reacts, interprets, and forms opinions. India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy has created ripples far beyond the boundaries of cricket for the global community. Such an act is not seen in isolation, but is filtered through layers of perception, political, cultural, and strategic. Every country and every audience interprets it differently, and that is where the real impact lies. To some, this decision may look like a bold display of strength and self-confidence, while to others it may appear as arrogance or a calculated form of resistance. The perception itself becomes as significant as the act. In Europe, where symbolism carries deep meaning in diplomacy and public life, this refusal could be viewed as a statement of independence. Nations that value tradition and ceremony understand the weight of rejecting a symbol of recognition. It is almost like rewriting the script of what is expected, and in doing so, forcing the audience to think about the underlying reasons. Europeans may interpret India's decision as an assertion of maturity, choosing principle over spectacle, and sending a reminder that respect cannot always be measured through material acknowledgments. For Asia and neighboring regions, the perception may be more complex. Rivals might see it as a strategic insult, a way of undermining the significance of the tournament itself, while allies could interpret it as a sign of strength, an indication that India no longer needs external validation to prove its dominance. The Global South, often seeking new narratives of independence from established systems, might even see it as inspirational, a gesture that breaks away from traditional dependence on recognition handed down by institutions or organizations. What is most important here is that the act compels international audiences to ask questions. Was the refusal meant as a critique of the system? Was it a message to rivals? Or was it a way to redefine how India wishes to be seen globally? Every interpretation adds another layer of meaning, creating a mosaic of perceptions that enhance the symbolic power of the act. In essence, the refusal is not confined to the tournament. It lives on in discussions, debates, and analysis across continents. The world's perception shapes the narrative, and in this case, it is a narrative that India itself seems determined to control rather than leaving it to others to define. Sports have always been far more than a competition of physical strength or skill. They are a stage where nations perform their identities, project their values, and sometimes even wage symbolic battles. A trophy, while seemingly just a piece of metal and design, becomes a representation of pride, unity, and recognition. When India refused the Asia Cup trophy, it demonstrated that sporting achievements are not confined to the boundaries of the playing field, but are deeply intertwined with politics, diplomacy, and the broader narrative of global influence. The act transforms the meaning of the event from a mere game into a statement that reverberates across international conversations. In modern times, sport has been consistently used as a tool of soft power, from the Olympic Games to World Cups. Victories and celebrations serve as ways to extend a nation's reach and enhance its reputation on the global stage. For India to deliberately turn down such recognition is to reject not only the prize, but also the conventional use of sport as a diplomatic instrument. This shows a willingness to redefine the terms of participation, emphasizing that values and principles are more important than symbols handed down through institutions. It shifts the interpretation of success from simply winning on the field to standing firm in a position that has political or moral weight. The refusal also underlines the complex relationship between sports and identity. For millions, sporting victories serve as a unifying force, a collective moment of pride where political and social differences are set aside. Yet by rejecting the trophy, India is highlighting that identity is not formed merely by external recognition, but by the strength of one's own stance and self-permit. This sends a message to the world that sports may be celebrated for entertainment, but it cannot be separated from the realities of power, sovereignty, and national dignity. For international audiences, especially those in Europe, this resonates strongly because history has shown how sports can carry political undertones, be it boycotts of events, symbolic gestures during ceremonies, or refusals to participate under certain banners. India's act adds to this legacy, reminding the global community that sporting platforms are stages where nations can send messages that go beyond the scoreboard. The Asia Cup, in this case, became less about cricket and more about communication, less about who won the final match and more about who chose to shape the narrative afterwards. Every action taken by a nation on the international stage sends ripples far beyond its immediate context, and India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy is no exception. To rivals, this act can be seen as a strong assertion of boundaries, a declaration that India will not be confined by traditions or expectations that do not align with its own priorities. It communicates a message of self-confidence and independence, one that signals India does not rely on validation from rivals or external structures to define its position. This is not merely a sporting choice, but a diplomatic gesture, one that tells the world we decide how we are represented, not others. For partners and allies, the refusal can carry an entirely different weight. Instead of being seen as arrogance, it may be interpreted as a sign of strategic restraint and clarity of vision. By refusing the trophy, India positions itself as a nation willing to challenge norms in order to stand firm on principle. Allies may see this as reassurance that India is not easily swayed by superficial recognition, and that its commitments in politics, trade, or global cooperation are rooted in deeper values rather than symbolic rewards. In the global arena, this strengthens the perception of India as a country that prioritizes substance over spectacle. Such an act also serves as a mirror for both friends and competitors, forcing them to reassess how they engage with India. Rivals may be frustrated by the disruption of tradition and by the message that India refuses to play the expected role in the script of international relations. Partners, on the other hand, may quietly admire the courage to reject what others might have eagerly accepted, understanding that such courage can extend to other fields of collaboration or negotiation. The message is clear. India seeks to redefine its image as a nation that is not bound by ceremonial approval, but by its own principles of sovereignty and dignity. This duality, defiance to rivals and reassurance to allies, gives the refusal its layered significance. It is not an isolated gesture, but part of a broader narrative about where India places itself in the world order. The act challenges adversaries, comforts partners, and asserts that the country's role in regional and global leadership will be shaped on its own terms, not dictated by trophies or symbols designed to frame its victory. When a nation takes a stand that diverges from expected traditions, the effects are rarely confined to the moment itself. India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy is not just a single event, but a signal with potential to shape future dynamics in international sports diplomacy and beyond. Trophies, ceremonies, and celebrations are established as part of a global system that connects nations through shared recognition. To walk away from such a system disrupts the flow of what is considered normal and forces institutions, governments, and audiences to reconsider how such symbols are used and what they truly represent. One of the immediate implications is that future tournaments may be viewed through a different lens. Organizers, players, and spectators will wonder whether trophies and awards still hold the same universal meaning if one of the world's most influential nations can turn them down. This could lead to discussions about reforming how recognition is awarded, making it less ceremonial and more aligned with values that nations find acceptable. In the long term, this could change the culture of international competitions, where integrity and political context may matter as much as athletic performance. Another layer of impact lies in how other countries might be inspired or emboldened by India's gesture. Nations that often feel marginalized in international sports or politics may see this as a model of asserting independence. Refusing recognition is a bold move, but it sends the message that true influence comes from standing firm on principle. rather than conforming to expectation. This could spark a new era in which countries use sporting platforms to highlight political or moral positions, thereby transforming sports diplomacy into a more direct stage for international messaging. At the same time, the refusal could make global powers reconsider how they engage with India. It sends a reminder that the country is willing to prioritize long-term values over short-term applause, which will likely influence negotiations, alliances, and even cultural exchanges outside of sports. It builds an image of resilience, suggesting that India wants to shape the rules of engagement rather than simply participate in frameworks built by others. And the future implications, therefore, go far beyond the Asia Cup itself. They extend into how nations use symbols, how soft power is exercised, and how global audiences interpret the relationship between sports and sovereignty. The refusal has created a precedent, and precedents often grow into patterns that redefine the way the world operates. In conclusion, India's refusal of the Asia Cup trophy was more than a decision about sport. It was a statement that resonated across nations, redefining how victories, recognition, and principles intersect on the global stage. It demonstrated that true strength lies not just in winning, but in standing firm for values, integrity, and identity. The message sent to the world was clear: respect and recognition are meaningful only when they align with one's principles, and a nation's dignity cannot be measured by trophies alone. Through this act, India has shown that leadership, courage, and vision often speak louder than applause, inspiring countries and individuals alike to think beyond conventional definitions of success. As we reflect on this remarkable moment, let us remember that every choice we make, whether on the field, in business, or in life, carries the power to send a message far beyond our immediate surroundings. May we all find the courage to stand by our principles, the wisdom to understand the deeper meaning behind our actions, and the vision to create a legacy that goes beyond recognition. Good luck to each one of you in your endeavors. Thank you for taking the time to reflect on this powerful lesson and for being part of this journey of understanding, growth, and inspiration.